So I had family in town for the holidays, of course. And it was like, I guess it was the day after Christmas, and we're just hanging out in the morning, and Live with Kelly and Michael, is that the name of the show? Comes on? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it was like a rerun kind of thing, or they were maybe showing like best of. So they show a bit with Denzel Washington. And I'll just say one of my family members goes into this kind of tirade about how much he hates Denzel Washington. And I
haven't heard tirade on Denzel Washington.
When I listened to her explanation, first of all, I'll say I have no problems with Denzel Washington. You know, I think he's fine. I think he's a good actor. But when I listened to what she had to say, I was like, I can kind of see what you're saying. I mean, mainly she feels like he comes across like he's way too pretentious. Like he just is really full of himself. And I mean, he does kind of give off a little bit of that kind of vibe, I think. I mean, I've never met this guy, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But it just made me think, I'm like, everybody seems to kind of have that where I'll run into people and they'll talk about some celebrity that they just can't stand. A lot of times I find it being celebrities that I'm like, why? Why do you hate this person? Like Tom Cruise. I've talked about it on here before. People have this whole anti-Tom Cruise thing. And it blows me away. But like, do you guys have like a celebrity music actor that just for whatever reason you just don't care for, you don't like?
I do.
Who is
it's
it? Weird.
Like there's no sound logic to why I don't like this person.
Right.
I've never met this person, and I don't know. I think it's just because when I see her acting, I'm just kind of like, I don't really know what the big deal is. I don't think she's an amazing actress. I don't think she does anything amazing singing-wise. And I think she's an attractive person, but I don't think she's, like, overly attractive. But I don't like Zooey Deschanel.
Wow. Yeah,
you just broke 1,000 men's hearts.
I know. And like,
so
including
many
mine.
It's like, I don't know why. I have no logical reason. It's not like I hate her. It's not like I dream about like her dying a horrible death or anything. Like, I'm just always kind of like, I'm just not a big fan. Like, I'm like, meh, moving on next. Like, I just don't really care for her. Like, I just don't think she's, I don't know. I'm just not wowed. I know, it's weird.
Yeah, well.
And her sister I like, though. That's the crazy part. I like her sister, but I don't like her.
Do you have anybody, Bobby?
Well, yeah. I mean, you'll probably be surprised by this because she's beloved by everyone. But honestly, I really can't stand Meryl Streep.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. Of course, who doesn't like Meryl Streep? Come on.
There are people that don't know.
Maybe you just like this. Like...
Did I just hit on a nerve? Did Michelle just?
Oh no, I have nothing against Meryl. I don't. No, she's fine. I'm saying I do know people. I actually have met people that don't like her. They're
probably
like,
just because she
Meryl
gets so much
Streep.
attention.
I think
she
so.
does get a lot of
attention.
attention.
That's what it is. Yeah,
and I could get that. Not saying I agree with it, but I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's not anyone like I really could say somebody like Justin Bieber or Kim Kardashian.
Well, like the
that kind of
ones
stuff.
don't
But I don't
count,
dislike them. They just proliferate the news, and I just sort of tune it out. And so I don't really dislike them or hate them. And as far as like acting or anyone in film, I don't have that. I don't. There's not one person that I'm just like tuned out about because they just get on my nerves somehow. And I know, I honestly think I can guess who yours is, but
really?
I mean, or at least if you may have more than one, but I know I can definitely guess one person. But
I'm curious, who is it?
Well, now I'm not saying you dislike the guy or you just hate anything he's in, but I know you have a serious jonesing for Brad Pitt when it comes to like his films and things you see him in. He just doesn't do it for you a lot of the time.
No, yeah, I don't have a problem with Brad Pitt. Like as a person, it doesn't bother me. And I don't even dislike him as an actor. I just find that he's just so hit or miss. There are times where I'm just like, oh man, he's just being so Brad Pitt, But I don't mind him. I do. There are one or I'm trying to. I know there's more, but one person, for example, that for some reason just kind of irritates me is Jennifer Lopez. She strikes me as somebody who really seems full of herself. And I remember, I forget who it was. It was when some of the royal family was like visiting L.A. and what's her name from Weeds? What's that actress's name? Why am I blanking on her name?
Three Names.
Yeah. Anyway,
Was in West Wing.
Yeah, lead from Wings.
Yeah.
I remember like she was talking to some press about how annoyed she was with her because like Jennifer Lopez was like hogging the prince and
Mary Louise Parker.
Yes, Mary Louise Parker, and then she just went on this rant with some news outlet about how like wow, just hello, they're here to meet everybody kind of thing, and it just completely solidified my feeling toward her. It's just like I don't know, you just irritate me. She's beautiful.
I
even saw that
agree.
trailer recently for The Boy Next Door or whatever it is, and I was
That looks awful.
it looks awful, but God, I'm like, man, she's hot as shit. But she's really annoying. Like, I don't know what it is. She just something about her. I'm just oh man, she just seems so full of herself.
I agree. Not a fan of her either.
I will say that it is disappointing when you see people that you think should be cool and they have this reputation for being hard to work with or whatever. So the person that comes to mind of that is like Katherine Heigl.
Yeah.
And, you know, you hear the stories about how difficult she is. And then she kind of tries to come out and counter it and be like, I don't know what everyone's talking about. I've been okay, and I never had any problems with this person. But that doesn't mean they don't have problems with you necessarily. So I don't know. It's always kind of like disheartening when you hear that about people because you think they'd sort of be like appreciative of where they are in life compared to most other people and what they have to do for a living. And I don't know, it's just like you wouldn't expect to hear that about certain people. But when you hear it, you're like, oh, really? Come on. Like, couldn't you be a little bit more appreciative of your position in life? I don't know. It's like what you said with Jennifer Lopez. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I just curious to ask you guys about that after hearing the whole rant about Denzel. And it went on for a while. I was like, man, you really don't like this guy. like, what did he do to you? And man, just really irritated her. Anyway,
I wonder what she thinks about Spike Lee.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question.
I think I think a lot of people everybody's got somebody.
Yeah, they do.
For just no reason, just no logical sound reason really. It's just
and then
kind of
there's people that maybe like the Meryl Streep thing where I don't necessarily have a problem with like this person, but I feel like they get way more attention than they deserve. Like one being like Beyonce. Like I feel like she gets worshipped almost on a religious level, and I just don't get it at all.
Yeah, I don't get her.
She seems like she's probably cool. I don't know. Never met her. Like she doesn't bother me like say a Jennifer Lopez, but yeah, just the attention and the admiration she gets for. I mean, yeah, it seems like a talented performer, but let's maybe step back a bit. She's not Jesus, like
right.
You know?
No, yeah.
Well, if you were to ask James Franco, his answer would be, "They hate us because they ain't us."
Nice. All right. Well, it is Sunday, December 28th, 2014. Let's get started. Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, a podcast where each week we chat about the latest happenings in film, TV, and pop culture. This is episode number 116. I'm David Lott. Joining me this week is Bobby Jackson.
Hey everybody, good to be back.
And Michelle Curry.
Hey everyone. Hello.
Welcome back, guys. We took a week off last week. Quick announcement before we jump into what we've been watching lately. As we mentioned the last time, next week we'll be recording our top 10 films of 2014. Look for that to be released on Monday, January 5th. So just make sure to check that out. And like we talked about last time, we'd be curious to know what your top 10 films are. You can let us know by emailing us at feedback@flickereffect.com. We may read some of them on the air. So yeah, we'd like to hear from you. Let us know. But with that, yeah, we've had a week off and a lot has happened in 2 weeks, mainly with this whole Sony thing. We're a little behind because we took a week off. But yeah, when we were last here, Sony was getting hacked. And then like, I think a couple days after we recorded, it started with every theater is dropping this film. And then because every major theater dropped the film, Sony just said, okay, we're going to pull it. And then everyone freaked out about that. and there was these rumors about an online release, but nothing was getting confirmed. And then finally, Sony kind of did an about face and decided, okay, we're going to let whatever theaters will run it go ahead and release it. So mainly, I don't know how many screens it is. It's like 200 or 300, something like that. Like independently owned, theaters that are showing it. And it also premiered online. You can watch it and buy it on YouTube. You can get it on Google Play, on Xbox. There's also a website, seetheinterview.com, where you can stream it. So yeah, it's out. Everyone's talking about it. It's making pretty good money for a movie that's being released online. And Bobby, you saw it, so I'm curious. What do you think of the interview?
Yeah, so I did end up seeing it, and I decided to watch it in the comfort of my own home by looking at it on Xbox Video. And obviously, it's had so much press behind it, and there's this factor of you had to just sort of see it, if you could see it, just to be able to say, look, I saw it, and you're putting your middle finger up to North Korea by saying, look, I was able to see it, and you can't keep it from me. So the movie in and of itself, though, like, obviously, who's in it. It's Seth Rogen and James Franco. And Seth also co-directed it and co-wrote it with Evan Goldberg, his partner that they usually write and direct stuff together. And the movie in and of itself, I honestly thought was underwhelming. It was funny in parts, but overall, it was just sort of like on this level of chaos and just complete and utter. I always mess that word up. I don't know why. Utter. And it was just like a lot of just over the top aspects and antics that started happening in the second half of the film. And I don't know. For me, it started off pretty good because it had this whole vibe. Like, did you ever see the movie Spies Like Us?
Oh, yeah.
Dan Aykroyd? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it had that sort of vibe going at first, and it was pretty cool. And then once they get to North Korea, and then Kim Jong-un's character comes into the scene, that's when everything started to change and the dynamics of the film started to change, and it became something different. And there was parts in it to where it was just sort of like it was almost satirical, but it was in a way that it was just like not it didn't flow well. And so it became too comical and too cartoonish in a way for me. And it was, if you want to compare it, it started to feel like the way what was the movie This is the End?
This is the End, yeah.
This is the End. How that felt, but at least with that, you kind of know that's sort of the premise going into it, that it's over the top. And this was like that in certain areas where it didn't seem like it lent itself to that at first. So it just kind of became out of control and into a whole different realm of silliness that I just couldn't really get behind. So in parts, I definitely did laugh, but not overall. It was not as strong as I was hoping it would be. So really, at this point, it's sort of a movie you should see, just to be able to say, look, I'm able to see it of my own accord, and I want to watch it just for that fact. And maybe there's some people who will get a good kick out of it and the laughs if they know it going into it, that it's sort of this super huge over-the-top humor.
Gotcha. I've been hearing a lot, though. This one thing I keep hearing a lot, it's kind of irritating me, even though I haven't seen it, is that I probably the most common reaction of, oh, I saw it and it's really not worth all this hype. And I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. I'm like, it's not hyped up because it's like an awesome movie. That's what you would say if you were seeing something that was hyped up because it's great. Like, no, it's hyped up because we know why, because they, are trying to kill the leader of North Korea. That's why it's hyped up. That doesn't make it good or bad.
Right.
Every time I hear that reaction, I'm just like, what are you saying? Stop. And I've heard a lot. It's so, I don't know. It's really irritating me, but just kind of out and about. The thing
that bothered me about it was that when I would read certain reviews, it was like people were looking for it to make some sort of overall statement on the living facilities and the way of life in North Korea. And like, why are you looking to Seth Rogen and James Franco to make that kind of statement in a film? I mean, it's not that. And if you go in expecting that, you're definitely looking at the wrong film. Yeah. So I just was like, that's just silly outhand that people are dismissing it because they didn't make a stronger statement about North Korea and the things going on there. I mean, that you shouldn't expect that from those two guys.
No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. So yeah, we didn't record last weekend, and the big release that weekend was The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. I actually haven't even seen this yet.
It surprises me.
Yeah.
It does and it doesn't to me, because I think it's just, that's proof that I really, as much as I kind of want to care, I really don't. Like, I adore Lord of the Rings, and I've really tried with these past two Hobbit films, and I like the second one more. I actually enjoyed the second film, but still, I find myself with the release of this movie just being kind of like, there's other stuff I really want to see. Like, I'm more interested in seeing, Into the Woods and, Big Eyes, and just lots of other films, like, kind of Oscar-worthy films. I don't know. There's something about The Hobbit. I'm just like, And I haven't really been hearing wonderful things about it. I've been kind of hearing pretty average reviews. In fact, I've even seen some people claim it's the worst Peter Jackson film ever. I don't know if that's true, and I'm curious to ask you guys, because you guys have both seen it. So how was The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies? Michelle, I'll go to you first.
Well, I mean, I think as a whole, the three Hobbit films just aren't holding a candle to... They're not living up to the Lord of the Rings expectations. It's very hard, I think, for that storyline to get to the level that the Lord of the Rings did. And I think it's very hard for Peter Jackson to recreate the magic that he did with his first three. So having said that, I mean, as a whole, I've been very underwhelmed with The Hobbit in comparison to the Lord of the Rings. I did like the second one. The third one I liked. Like, it's enjoyable. It's the conclusion of the story. It's really where all the action goes down in, which is great. And it kind of wraps everything up, which is what it's supposed to do. But it's hard because you've got the Lord of the Rings trilogy, on such a pretty high pedestal, and we're all comparing everything to that. And I just don't think The Hobbit's, it's missing the mark completely, unfortunately. And I don't know if that's to Peter Jackson's fault, or is it just because they took The Hobbit, which is one book, and chopped it up into 3 long movies because they wanted to make more money.
And they made it after they made the more epic trilogy
exactly.
of Lord of the Rings.
And so it's like, there's a lot that goes into, like, why is this not as amazing and not as mind-blowing? And it's like, it could be because it was just one book. It could be because it was after, like... But, I mean, I liked it. It was enjoyable. Like I said, it's nice I like the way they adjusted to the storyline and added some characters, which was kind of nice. But yeah, you don't get the attachment, fuzzy feelings to certain characters in this one as you do with the Lord of the Rings. And I don't know, it's kind of, but there's aspects of it that are really cool because they hint towards the Lord of the Rings stuff at the end of it. So that's kind of nice. It's a nice build up to, like, oh yeah, that's right, this is going to line up and that's going to line up. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, overall, it's not the best thing, but it's not like it's not like it was just the worst movie ever. Like, I didn't walk out going, oh, I just lost all that money.
No, I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, but
What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, well, for me, these movies have been on par with what my expectations were for them. And that's to say that I never went in sort of looking for the same experience I got from the Lord of the Rings films. I understood and knew going into it that this was a different set of films, and the tone is different because of the nature of the adapted material. So for me, it was just about this whole series. These 3 movies for me were about returning to Middle Earth for one last time and getting to experience that world again in this book that sort of started off the series and gets you to the Lord of the Rings. So it was all about the adventure. And that was what I took away from all 3 films. From the first one, when he's just leaving the Shire and getting out there when Bilbo is is first experiencing Middle Earth and everything that it has to offer. And I felt that sort of earnest feeling that he had when he was going through his adventure and all the things he was experiencing. And I enjoyed that part of the journey. And in the second film, it builds up on that, and you get more action, and the whole scene with the barrels in the river, that was like one of my favorite parts of that film. So with the third film, it's mostly, honestly, just capping off the other two films. And you get about a half an hour of tying up loose ends from the previous film, from The Desolation of Smaug. And then you're off and rolling into this Battle of the Five Armies. And for about, a good hour and a half, you're just in a long battle. And that's what you expect to see in one of these films, is an epic battle, because this is what it all leads to. And this is what it's been boiling towards. So everybody wants that position of where all the dwarves are. So it felt big in scale. It had characters in there that I know Michelle was saying like there was no one to really latch onto, but I really did latch on to a few of them. And I really felt like it did a good job of servicing those characters and really tying up those stories, especially the one with I can't remember her name, but the elf.
Evangeline Lilly's character?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And her and the other dwarf that she was in love with, or their relationship or whatever. So, and that wasn't even part of the original book. But yet I thought for something that was sort of put in there, they did a good job of really developing that over the last two films and giving you some resolution within this film. And I will say the one thing that is a detriment to the film compared to the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the use of CG, because the armies are these CG characters, and the battles themselves don't feel as full as like you don't get the same sort of visceral feel from it that you get from the original, because they use more practical effects and there was more actual people dressed in the orc battle gear and in the makeup and everything. And this one feels a little more hollow, I guess, because of the CG. But when you're in the moment, you still are just absorbed in the action and going along with the story. And for me, it just really put a bow on the whole Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series. And it just did a good enough job for me to really have enjoyed the time that I spent with the film. And I liked it, and I thought it was worth the trip to see this one and just tell the story and be able to get something out of it. And especially when you see Bilbo and towards the end of the movie, and you get all that feeling, like Michelle said, when you know it's going to lead up to the Lord of the Rings series. So yeah, I don't know. I really did enjoy it, and I understand the criticisms that are out there about it, and I can't really argue against them, but I just know for myself, I really did enjoy it and had a good time with this series.
Cool. I'll see it eventually, probably, in the next week or so. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of the series, I definitely say go see it. It does. It's the feelings you get from the setup for the Lord of the Rings, but also the conclusion of the Hobbit's tale itself. So it's nice. I mean, it's good. I'd definitely go see it.
Either of you guys do the high frame rate thing? No?
No,
What?
I did see 3D, but I didn't see the high frame rate.
Had you seen it in any of the Hobbit films?
I saw it in the first one,
Okay.
in the original Hobbit film.
And you haven't seen any of them in high frame rate?
No.
Yeah, don't bother.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, it really is a different experience
It's
altogether, and it's
weird.
not one that's like you're going to come away being happy that you saw it, because it's like one of those things where once you see it, you can't unsee it, and then it's sort of like it sticks with you. So
I'm
you don't
really
wanna
looking
see it.
forward to seeing a movie that works that way, because there's
Yeah.
something interesting about it. I mean, it's like, that first time I saw that, the first Hobbit film, I mean, right at the opening, like Warner Brothers New Line title, it's like, whoa, that's different.
Yeah.
And it's like that the whole movie, but it also, I think it made everything even look extra fake. Like you're talking about Bobby, all the CG and everything in it just offers a clarity that makes all of the fakeness obvious.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a feeling we're going to see more of it eventually. And I don't even know what the deal is with the Avatar sequels. I know there's been talk of making those at high frame rate, but I don't know if he's actually following through with that or not. I do think there'll probably be certain types of movies, maybe sci-fi or something, where it'll work. It'll look right. But of all the movies to do it first with, a movie that's supposed to be like settled in this kind of natural environment, and to do it where, it's just so weird looking, so not cinematic. It's very odd.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think it would work better with just a normal drama or something where you don't have like a lot of special effects or a lot of stage settings for scenes where there's a lot of things that don't really exist. You would think it would just be something that you could, like top 5, that could have been something that you might see in a high frame rate as opposed to Lord of the Rings.
There'd be no need
Hobbit
for
film.
it, but
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Michelle, you also got a chance to see Unbroken this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, both of you guys did.
I just watched that today.
Yeah?
So I'm fresh from the theater.
Well, you've been excited about Unbroken.
I have been excited because there's been a lot of build-up with it. The book itself came out, I'd like to say 2 years ago, and the book did amazing things. It, awesome, New York Times top 100 for like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I've heard the book is amazing and I've always wanted to read it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But then I heard the movie was coming out and I was like, great, I'll just see the movie like all the other lazy Americans do. So yeah, I liked it. I don't know if initially it was getting, well, I'll say this. So before it was released, it initially was getting quite a lot of hype. Maybe not necessarily for Angelina Jolie's directing abilities, but as a film and a storyline goes as a whole, it kind of was getting some really good positive vibes. Having said that, once it was released and more people started seeing it, reviews kind of started mellowing out and started getting a little more realistic about things. So after seeing it today, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was an amazing epic, which it's not. It's not an epic movie. It's an epic tale of a guy who survived this crazy situation. And as you're watching it, as I was watching it at least, the whole time I was sitting there thinking, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I'm that strong of a human being to go through that kind of a life-changing events, I should say,
right,
that he went through. The struggle and the fight that he put up was amazing. So storyline-wise, I thought it was really good. I was surprised at how little dialogue there actually was in the movie. I wasn't expecting that. But what dialogue there was really good. Trying to think, what else? I have to say for Angelina Jolie directing, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't amazing. And I did like, in a weird way, I liked a lot of the simplicity of a lot of the shots that were done. It was very clean, I guess is a good way to say it. It's very focused on the characters, not so much where they're at or what's happening. But it is also beautiful at the same time.
Right.
So, I don't know. I liked it. I don't think it was 95% amazing, but somewhere in the middle. It's
gotcha.
Good. Yeah.
What'd you think, Bobby?
Yeah, see, Michelle just hit on something when she mentioned about the directing from Angelina Jolie. That was one of the things that I did enjoy on a certain level, is where the scenes that she would shoot, there was a beauty to them, because there was like a lot of the setting and the contrast, and you could see a lot of that sort of period piece to it. And I thought she did a fine job directing, although there was a certain point in it where I did have a little bit of a problem with the way she sort of set the story up, because there was the use of flashbacks in the throughout the film, and there was a point where, especially in the beginning, a lot of times she would flash back on a point that was from the present to the past, and to me it had no sort of connection to what was going on. There was no narrative flashback that connected to the present. Whereas, you watch Arrow, right?
Well, yeah.
Well,
I watch it.
yeah, with Arrow, so you know how like on that show, whenever he's going through in the present, it sort of has something to do with something in his past, and it sort of gives you that sort of feedback on it.
Right.
And usually that tends to happen in a lot of films. There's something within a moment that makes them flashback to something in their childhood or whatever. But that didn't have that sort of connection. It just seemed sort of random whenever she would flash back. And I thought that there was like not enough time spent maybe in a linear fashion, which it could have benefited. You could have seen him a little bit more when he was younger and seen a little bit more of his time in the Olympics, as opposed to just seeing the complete struggle of everything he was going through. And while I say that, she did do a good job with, I guess, showing that aspect of it, because like Michelle said, you sit there and you're watching it and you're just sitting there thinking like, you know, for me, I was just thinking, I had to keep reminding myself that this is a real person that went through this. And from the time that it seems like either this guy had the worst luck of any person ever to live, or you take away from it that he was able to persevere over all of his personal losses and every situation that he would get put in, he just never gave up. And that was the real sort of takeaway from it, because if you're stranded in the middle of the ocean on a raft for like 46 days or however many days it was, I mean, most people wouldn't have made it past the first week. And so to get past that and then to after that become a prisoner of war, you're just thinking like, how much can one person take? And so within that, I would say the thing that not only from the story standpoint that you get from that, or the moral, there's also within the acting performance. And I really thought that Jack O'Connell did a great job portraying Louis Zamperini. You could see the emotion in his face as he was going through a lot of these struggles, being tested time and time again. That was just like, wow, man, this is just insane. And it's mind-boggling that there was a period of time where this was happening. And so it just reminds you of that. And the performances were all around just great. And so, yeah, I enjoyed the film for sure. And I think it's one of those things, if you like based on a true story films, and I didn't read the book, so I don't know what they didn't put in there, what they should have put in there. But from what you get, I'd say it's a solid film, and you should see it.
Yeah.
All right.
I fully agree. Yeah, Jack O'Connell was awesome in it. His performance was. I mean, I hope he gets some nod in some way, because he really conveyed every emotion I think anyone possibly could go through in the situations that he was put into. Yeah, I fully agree with what Bobby said. And you know what I was surprised about? I didn't realize until the end credits that the Coen brothers co-wrote for this movie. I had no idea. I was like, what? The Coen brothers?
Mm-hmm.
What? That's just kind of cool. Like on a totally different note. I was like, oh wow. Didn't have a clue about that, but yeah.
Didn't know that. Yeah, I'll probably see it. I don't know. There's something about this movie that it just doesn't appeal to me. Like when I've seen trailers for it, I'm like, it just looks like Oscar bait, like, you know, and it just seems like something I've seen a million times kind of thing. And I don't know. It's something about it. It's just not my thing. I mean, you know, hearing you guys saying that you enjoyed it, I'll probably watch it at some point. Will I see it in theaters? Almost certainly not. But yeah, I don't know. Just something about it. It's not appealing to me. But cool. You guys liked Unbroken. Well, we all saw Into the Woods, which was one of this weekend's bigger releases. Came out on Christmas Day. This is a film directed by Rob Marshall, of course, based on the stage musical by Stephen Sondheim. What do you guys think of this? Bobby, I'll go to you first. What do you think of Into the Woods?
Yeah, okay. So, well, I remember a while back when we were talking about this, I think at the time it was still just a trailer, and you guys had clued me into the fact that it was based on a musical, because at the time I had no idea. I thought it was just a original film. And so I was of the mind that I really didn't want to see this film, because it just, I don't know, it didn't appeal to me in the same way that Unbroken just didn't do anything for you in the previews. That's how this film was for me. It was just like, I'll probably skip this one. Maybe I'll watch it for the show and that we can talk about it. But I was of sound mind that I was not going to see it. And then I guess a few weeks ago when I ended up watching Pitch Perfect and seeing Anna Kendrick, I was like, okay, let me give that Into the Woods a try. And what I saw in that film was something I wasn't expecting, which was a musical film that, to me, did a good job of portraying these different stories that we've seen time and time again, but just told in a different sort of way. And for me, it was different enough because I don't always watch a lot of these deconstructive fairy tale stories, like a lot of those types of films, or read a lot of those stories. So for me, it was kind of interesting to see the different twists and turns they took on the characters. And I guess since at the time when this play probably came out, it was probably, I don't know, maybe progressive in that time, because I don't think they were really deconstructing a lot of those fairy tales back then, as opposed to how they do it now a lot for everything, whether it's comic books or cartoons or other fairy tales in general. So I like the music. I didn't honestly think I would like that part going into it either, because I wasn't familiar with anything. And for me, any kind of musical that I've ever seen, a lot of times it just boils down to just that very simple thing, is whether or not I enjoy the music in it. And it's not like it has to be something where I'm tapping my toe or anything like that. It just has to be sort of appealing to me in a the way that it sounds and the way that it kind of comes across. And I liked everyone's things that they were doing in the film, whether it was Meryl Streep or Anna Kendrick. And I just thought the performances were good, the music was good, the story was good, and I enjoyed it, thinking that I wasn't going to before I even had a chance to see it. I'll say the one thing that struck me is, well, I would say that it didn't for me work, was Chris Pine as Prince Charming. I don't know if I see it, not knowing the source material or how it's supposed to come off, but to me, he sort of came off as like overacting or overplaying that role. And I don't know if that was the way it's supposed to be, or if he just was that way in the film, because there was a lot of times in that film when he was on screen and doing his lines or doing his singing that the audience was laughing. And I was like, are we supposed to be laughing here? Is this like, is he supposed to be like this big in the film, or is he just putting that on there? It's almost like when people say William Shatner as Captain Kirk is like overacting or doing a little too much for the role. It was kind of like that in a way with Chris Pine doing this Prince Charming role. So for me, that didn't quite work, but everything else did, and I really enjoyed the film.
What did you think, Michelle? I say this like this because I already know what you think.
Yeah, you already know. We already had a little discussion. Okay, so I am a musical fan. I do love musicals. I'm quite a big range of them, actually. I did not like this one at all. I really didn't. I didn't connect to any of it. I did not like the music in it. And, Sondheim, like, he's not my favorite, but he's not bad. Like, I mean, it's not horrible or anything, but this just, not for me. I didn't really know a lot about the premise of the actual storyline. I knew that it was a mixture of fairy tale storylines that were all kind of converging into one major storyline. And I knew that the main characters were going to be just kind of this baker and his wife. But I have to say, and it's funny you mentioned Chris Pine, because for me, the saving graces in the movie were Emily Blunt and James Corden. But I think for me, the big saving grace of the entire movie actually was Chris Pine. I think Chris Pine saved it. Not only because he's hot, but because he is, but I think I think he did his role perfectly. And I don't know anything about this storyline, but I think he's supposed to be over the top. I think the whole point was that and he says it in the movie, I was meant to be charming, not sincere. Right. And so he was supposed to be this character that's completely just too much to even believe he's actually a real person. And so I loved every moment of him on screen. Like, I was like, oh, this is what we needed. I needed something that was going to keep me attached. And then, like, he has a brother who's a prince in the movie, too. And they have a little singing duet. And I was like, this is great. This is the highlight of the whole movie right here. It's so over the top that it's too much to even handle. And that, for me, was the saving grace. But the rest of it was kind of eh. But the other thing I did like, though, was the way they did a lot of the shots made me kind of feel like I was watching a play, like I was seeing an actual stage production. And I kind of like that. That kind of made me feel like I was seeing it in a different context other than watching it on a screen, like the way that they had the giant's hand swoop down, or the way they would have the vibrations of the giant and making the scenes kind of shake. I was like, that's what you would do on stage. That's how you would convey what's happening to an audience live. And that was kind of cool, but the music, the singing I don't think the singing was that great. I mean, Emily was really good, but Meryl and the rest of them just...
You really didn't like any of the singing other than...
I was not a fan. I was not a fan of the music itself. I know. It's, hey, it just wasn't my cup of tea. I don't know why, but I was not blown away by this one at all, which is a shame. I was so looking forward to this movie for such a long time. I was so excited. I was like, oh, we haven't had a good old fashioned musical in a long time. And then it was like, oh, this isn't really disappointing me. But hey,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I just saw it. I got home about 30 minutes before we started recording from seeing this, so it's fresh in my mind. Overall, I'll basically say I really enjoyed it. There's things about it that make it not great. One, I think it's not necessarily now, first of all, I'll say, I'm a Stephen Sondheim fan in that I've listened to a lot of his musicals, but in general, when it comes to musicals, there's many, even though I've listened to, like this one, I've never seen. I didn't grow up in New York, and sure, we've got musicals that come through town, but I don't make it to very, very many of them. And, I've never actually seen this performed. And now actually having seen it, I'm like, it seems like it would be great to watch on stage, but it doesn't make an interesting film in that it's just got kind of one set piece. It's in the woods. There's not much else going on. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, I feel like this is something that would, be very naturally performed on stage. But, normally when you have something in film, like Les Mis being in film, you can make huge set pieces out of that. And this, not so much. You've got the castle here and there, but for the most part, they're in the woods. And that makes sense. We should expect that. But you know what I mean? It's just something about it that I don't know if it's the best musical to make a film out of. I mean, I'm curious now to see this on stage. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the music. I enjoyed all the singing. I thought all the performances were great. And one person you mentioned beforehand, which I feel completely the opposite about, Lola Crawford's character is Little Red Riding Hood. I thought she was fantastic. I can't even fathom where you're coming from, where you didn't like her. And yeah, I thought, Anna Kendrick was as good a singer as she always is. And Emily Blunt, I loved in it. I mean, I love her anyway, but yeah, she was good. I liked all the performances, and as with any other musical too, it's, kind of different than movies. Movies tend to have like a major climax and a big third act. And you find a lot with musicals that's almost the opposite. You normally have all these big opening numbers, and then when you get to the final act of a musical, it's kind of somber and just kind of ends. And that's kind of how this musical goes as well. And I'm wondering if that's turning a lot of people off. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it.
Maybe I have a thing against Little Red Riding Hood the way I do against Zooey Deschanel. Like, I just have no logical reason. I just don't like her.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand why I didn't like her.
I don't know.
Yeah, I liked her too.
It's like every time she's on screen and she would talk, I was just like, oh. And then she would start singing, and I was just like, oh, make it stop. And I don't know why I felt this way.
I don't understand that at all.
It was a totally unappealing character, storyline, music section for me. I wasn't into that.
I mean, I will say the Johnny Depp wolf thing
Yeah.
I mean, I get that on stage you'd have somebody portray the wolf, and he'd probably just dress like a wolf. And here, I don't know if this is how it's normally done, where you had him dress like a wolf. He's not like CG wolf or something. He's not motion capture wolf, but not only I get that you kind of have him dressed like a wolf, but he's wearing like clothes that are not even like of that time period at all. He's wearing like a necktie, and this hat, and I don't know.
It was this weird like 1920s gangster street thuggy weird. I'm going to sell you a watch out of my jacket kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I don't.
Well, not just that. It just really, to me, it didn't work well just because of the fact that a lot of the music, or at least with him singing and everything, and maybe the fact that he was dressed up, it just all sounded like he was just like a pedophile in a way. The way he was sort of talking to this girl.
Well, yeah, I know. They've kind of had to work around that. I saw an article that touched on that very thing about how Disney had to kind of tiptoe around that aspect of the song. And I don't know. I didn't actually read the article because I hadn't seen the movie yet, but now I'm curious to read it. But
my theater was laughing pretty hard during that whole section. It was hard not to start giggling.
As for the Chris Pine thing that you brought up, Bobby, and then you really liked him, Michelle.
So opposite.
I get what you're saying, Bobby. Like when he and Billy Magnuson had started singing Agony.
Yeah, there you go.
Right at the beginning of Agony, I was like, is he supposed to be kind of so over the top? And then as the song progressed, I was like, okay, yeah. Because then Billy's character started kind of being the same way. And I actually really enjoyed Chris Pine as the film went on. But at first, I did start to have the same reaction you did, Bobby, like where I was like, this seems weird. But then it made sense.
Yeah, it took a while to get to that point of realizing, like, oh, he's supposed to be like this. Yeah. But it definitely was pretty slow to get to that point. But once it did, once you knew, you're like, oh, this is great.
For me, I guess it was weird because everything else felt sort of grounded and realistic as these characters, and to just only at a slightly above the ground level of them being realistic. But he was so over the top that it pulled me out every time, because I was like, everyone else seems grounded enough to where you sort of believe in their character and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And maybe the fact that he is this Prince Charming and he has this sort of arrogance and sort of not knowing that people around him think of him in this certain sort of way, maybe that plays into it. But for me, as I'm just watching it, it was like everyone else felt so realized, and he just seemed, I guess, maybe realized, but I didn't realize that character should be that over the top. And so for me, it just kept pulling me out every time he'd sing or he had some lines. And just his hair. I mean, it just felt like Chris Pine with some big hair. It's just, I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. But everything else I did enjoy though, especially like when you guys were talking about James Corden. I don't know what else I've seen him in, but I really liked him in this for sure.
Well, he's taking over for the late show for
Craig Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson.
Yeah. We'll be seeing a lot more of him here in the States.
Yeah, we're going to start seeing a lot of him in the United States. But he did recently just do a movie, and it's based on a true story from a guy from Britain who went on to Britain's Got Talent, and he was just kind of a regular guy, and he starts singing opera, and his life completely changes. That's one I want to see. I'm trying to think what the title of that is, but I want to see that one. That one's supposed to be pretty good, truth be told.
Yeah, he's an actor I think that's very, very popular in the UK.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a whole lot of him yet here in the States, but obviously we will be seeing more of him with just his late night show, and I assume he'll probably be still doing other things, even though he'll probably be pretty busy with that.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that sort of struck me was that to me, a lot of the scenery, and like you said, when you were talking about David, that it's mostly set in the woods, so you can't really get away from that too much. But I think one of the aspects that did sort of brighten it up when Rob Marshall, he was directing it was the use of colors in certain scenes, especially like Red Riding Hood's Red Riding Hood, and it looked good in the way that it popped from the comparison of everything else that was sort of drab and dreary, and that's what you would see in the woods in that nature. I guess maybe there could have been the use of more greens to a certain extent, but since this woods was supposed to be a little bit more creepy and not give that sort of that airy sort of polite and nice woods, and it's supposed to be a little bit more eerie and creepy. It had that darker tone to it. But yeah, I did think that with what he had to work with in terms of that being the sort of the main centerpiece and set piece, that was conveyed well enough to where you do feel that sort of sense of dread when you're in the woods.
Gotcha. All right. Well, moving on. I had the opportunity this week to see American Sniper. This is a new film from Clint Eastwood. It's in limited release right now. It's going to go wide release, I think, in mid-January, like mid-January 13th or something like that. It stars Bradley Cooper as, I guess he is still considered America's deadliest sniper in history. I think he had 160 confirmed kills. The character he's playing is Chris Kyle. It was based on a biography about Chris Kyle called American Sniper that was released not that long ago, just a few years ago. And you guys probably saw the trailer. At least the first trailer that came out, was pretty much primarily what is the very first scene of the film, of him having to decide whether or not to kill a mother and her child because he doesn't know what they're about to do. I remember seeing that trailer and being like, Jesus, that's intense as hell. Like, I have to see this. It was an impressive trailer. Basically the film, it's good, but it's, I don't know. It kind of misses the mark. And
is that a pun?
That's a pun. You like that one? Haven't heard that one enough.
Misses the mark. A sniper misses the mark.
So basically Bradley Cooper is fantastic in it. He does a great job in this film. The film, I don't know if it's just directing, editing, or both. It just feels lazy. And I don't know. It just doesn't work. It's too bad because this film has, been in development since before Chris Kyle died. And there was a point where David O. Russell was going to direct it. And then even Steven Spielberg was attached. He was going to direct this. I would kill to see this directed by Steven Spielberg. It's really unfortunate that this wasn't. Clint Eastwood, he's a great actor. He's a good director. He's directed some great films, but he's also had some misses. I mean, I didn't see Jersey Boys this year, but I haven't heard great things. You saw it, Bobby, right?
No, that was Yasha. That
was Yasha. Okay.
Yeah.
I really haven't heard much good about it. And now this, I'm like, this could have been so good, and that's what's so frustrating about it. And at least I'm happy that Bradley Cooper did a great job in portraying this American soldier. But unfortunately, the film doesn't quite live up to being a great tribute to his life, and it's kind of frustrating. I will say, too, like, I don't know where the hell I was, and that I didn't know that this guy died while this film was in development. I mean, I had no idea. And now I realize after watching it and reading a little bit online that I guess most people do. And so when the ending of this film came up, I was like, holy shit, I had no idea. And it really shocked me and kind of depressed me. I don't know. I had high hopes for this, and it just wasn't quite there. And it's really frustrating. As good as the performances are in it, the directing just feels a little, again, off the mark.
That's really sad to hear, because I was really looking forward to this one, and I think I'll still watch it because I am interested in it for sure. But it's sad to hear because I feel like Clint Eastwood, like you said, he's had some good ones, he's had some bad ones, but I feel like lately they have just really they're not living up to what we know he is capable of doing in a film, and so it's kind of sad to hear. It's like, oh, another Clint bomb. And
it's not a bomb. I mean, it's better than some of his stuff, and you should see it. And you may enjoy it more than me, and it's not a bad movie. I do recommend people seeing it, but it's frustrating because it could have been so much better. Like there's some development at the beginning of the film where you see him like in his childhood and how his father raised him to be, and it's all this development stuff to see kind of where he came from and why he chose to do what he did and decide to join the Navy SEALs and become a sniper. And just even all of that like just seemed underdeveloped. I mean, I get that you don't want to kind of dwell on that too much. Your audience probably wants to get to war more quickly and the chunk of the film. So even though I think timing wise it worked out well, how little time you spent on him and his, early years, at the same time it felt so quick, and you just it felt so just jumpy, and some of it I didn't even know why I was seeing particular scenes. So I don't know. Some of it's frustrating, but it's a good film, just not great. Yeah.
Well, I definitely still plan on seeing it because, like you said, it's definitely something you should still go out and see. And I don't know. For me, I don't know how anyone else feels, but I'm a sucker for films that are based on true stories. I get caught up in them because even though that some of it could be exaggerated or some of it is just filled in to make a good movie per se, that it's still essentially something that happened, whether it's a true event or a true person's life. And just to see this where you're kind of getting, I guess, the Cliff Notes version of this person's life, it's still something more than what you probably would have gotten if you just saw it on the news or maybe if you had a chance to read a book. But generally speaking, if you don't have those opportunities, getting that in this 2-hour film or whatever, at least gives you an idea or a basis or a jumping off point to go and do more research about the person and get that kind of full background story. So yeah, I'll definitely check it out when it comes out.
Yeah, check it out. I'm curious to know what you guys think. But oh man, God, I wish we could go back in time and let Steven Spielberg direct this. It could have been so amazing, like even with the script they had, you could have made this in a way that would have been so much better. And it's just not there. So sad. Anyway, and as for the ending of the film, I have read some, complaints since I watched it that, it doesn't really do a good job of kind of attacking this, what happens to him. I don't know about that. I actually kind of liked how it handled it, having not even though I wasn't expecting it as it happened in the film, I think that was handled well. I will say that. But moving on, that makes up everything Michelle and I have seen. And some of the stuff you've seen, Bobby. But Bobby, you've seen a lot more than we have.
I know, right?
I was watching Christmas movies and enjoying the holidays, and eating a lot of food.
Watching stuff.
See, what I was doing my due diligence to bring back to the show a ton of information of stuff that I saw. I pretty much saw everything that was out there to see in the theater that was playing and then some, because I had enough time to actually still watch some stuff on Netflix and just that was on regular TV. So basically, I'll start off with a few TV shows that I was able to catch on. So when we're talking about stuff on the podcast, I'm constantly in my mind thinking, okay, make a mental note, check that one out when you have some time, just to see what it's all about. And so one of those shows was Jane the Virgin, which was something that Yasha was talking about a couple weeks ago and how much he liked it. And the whole background of it, it stars Gina Rodriguez, and she's a woman that gets artificially inseminated by mistake, and she has to sort of deal with all this sort of fallout that happens after that becomes an event in her life. And it's definitely has a telenovela feel to it, and it knows it, and it plays into it. And so it goes and relies on a lot of those tropes that are in telenovelas. And so it has that feel to it, and it sort of feels like a little bit like Desperate Housewives and a little bit like Ugly Betty, all thrown into a pot and stirred together. And the writing is definitely really smart, and it's just pretty witty, and it's a good solid show. I was able to watch 2 episodes of it, so I got a good feel for it, and it's something I don't know that I will personally continue watching on a weekly basis, but I will sort of check back in with it in the sense when I get a little bit more time and can just sort of catch up to it. because it's the first season. I think they're only about 9 episodes in. And as soon as I have a little bit more stretch of time, I'll probably try and catch up with it. And it'll be something I'll sort of watch when I have a chance. But it was a lot better than I was thinking it was going to be. So I would say if you are into those kind of stories, or you liked Ugly Betty or any of those types of other shows, it'd be a good one to check out. Excuse me. Now, the other show that I watched was Person of Interest. And a lot of my friends have been telling me for years to watch that show. And that one stars Jim Caviezel, Taraji P. Henson, and Michael Emerson. And the story behind that is like Michael Emerson plays this, I guess, sort of a computer programmer guy, and he develops this AI surveillance system that helps him identify people that are going to be potentially involved in a crime. And he uses sort of Jim Caviezel's character as sort of like his man of action. He's sort of the person who investigates and, is called into duty to sort of take out the person or whatever the case may be. And so I was able to watch the pilot, and yeah, it was really solid. For the pilot episode, it really pulls you in and lets you know all the players involved and the whole premise behind it. And it's intriguing. And from what I know of the show and have heard from other people, it gets way more involved. And so that's what I really like, when those shows are really serialized and they get more in depth. So I'm definitely going to be watching that one more when I have a chance. Like I said, my plate's pretty full, and I don't know when I'll be able to get to it. Yeah, when I'll be able to fit it in, but it's something that I definitely want to make some room and time for, because it was pretty good, and it's the type of show that's right up my alley.
Yeah, I've got a family member that's been following it since it first started, and he says it's worth it. He keeps telling me, he's like, "You've got to watch it. You've got to watch it. You've got to watch it." I'm like, I've got a full plate, but I mean, I've heard good things. So I mean, yeah, if you can do it, man, let us know a little later down the road if I need to start clearing some room on my plate.
Yeah, that will be hard, because for sure it's one of those shows where, since it's on broadcast, it's 22 episodes a season, and I think they're on 4 seasons or something now. I think it is. So 3 or 4. So that's a heavy commitment to try and get caught up on. So I'll try and maybe do a few episodes here and there and see how it goes. But that sort of reminds me, David, where are you at with your shows?
My shows?
Yeah, well, I know one show in particular.
Well, I'm caught up now on The Flash and Arrow.
Okay.
Which I dig those shows, man. And I've become more and more impressed with The Flash as it's gone on. After those first 2 episodes, I was still interested, but kind of wary about it. And I really dig it. I don't know if I'm ready to say I like it more than Arrow, because I do really like Arrow, but it's different, and I'm really enjoying it a lot. So yeah, I'm caught up on those. I am now 6 episodes in on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The from the beginning, I mean. I knocked out 6 episodes in one day, and then the holidays came, and I've been busy, and that's why I haven't watched much. But yeah, I'm getting through that. And I will say, with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., before I had seen kind of random episodes. I saw the pilot, and for whatever reason, I remember my DVR didn't record the 2nd episode. So I watched the 3rd episode, and then I didn't pick it up again until they started doing the tie-in with Winter Soldier. So I remember I was just like, well, screw it. I'll just start watching these because it ties in. So it was kind of random. I think missing that 2nd episode was a big miss. There was it's a lot of development for the group. And now having seen it, I was like, oh man, I really shouldn't have missed that episode. And I'm liking it so far. I'm enjoying it.
It gets better.
So if it gets even better, that's a good sign. But so far, I'm digging it.
Nice. I'm almost caught up on Flash. I haven't watched the last episode that's aired, basically, is where I'm at. So, yeah. And I am liking it more and more.
I was, that last episode of Arrow, I was like, wow, they're going there. And immediately my wife was like, I can't believe they would do that. I'm like, don't worry. I can tell you right now what's coming.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
This is one thing I know something about. We're going to be fine. But yeah, that's crazy.
You just might need to take a long bath.
Exactly. Nice long bath. I guess he tweeted out some fan art of that. I saw, kind of teasing what we're talking about. But
okay, really, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he tweeted it out. Maybe some people thought it was official, but yeah, it was like a fan art thing of kind of teasing what we're speaking of. I hate to be so cryptic, but yeah, I really dug it, man. And I was. The funny thing is you go into that last scene of that episode, and I wasn't even really thinking about that. I was just like, "Huh, how's this going to play out?" So when what happened actually happened, there was a split second where I was like, "Oh shit!" And then it hit me like almost immediately. I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, wow, they're going to do that. All right, cool."
Yeah.
It's funny that I hadn't even thought about it leading up to that scene. Now I'm like, how did I not think of this? But anyway, it was
I'd
awesome.
been thinking of it for a while, but yeah, definitely can't wait to see how that plays out.
I know this is a frustrating conversation for people who watch the show, but
well, maybe it'll get them to watch it. I don't know. But speaking of tweeting out, did you see the tweet that Clark Gregg had sent out? Maybe I'd say last week.
No.
Well, he tweeted out a picture of I forget exactly what was in the picture, but it was basically a picture of Hawkeye, and he didn't really say anything other than like it was just something that a short sentence, or maybe it was just a picture. But the implication is that maybe Hawkeye will be on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or there'll be some sort of tie-in with that.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. Look for that to be happening.
Oh, that's exciting.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of Marvel, by the way,
go
I'm going to sidetrack. I was lucky enough to get finally this. I don't know if you guys ever remember seeing after phase 1 of, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was done, they released all of the
box set?
That box set that comes in the briefcase.
Oh, you did not get that.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. I got to say.
I got it.
Oh, my God.
Son of a gun.
The little Tesseract glows on its own, and it's cool. Like you flip through the files, and it's got like 4 or 5 files in it that are supposed to be for like the different, Avengers. And it's cool. Like in the Thor one, it's got like his hospital tag in there, and it's got like it's one of his like one of Natalie Portman's characters, like her badge thing, and it's just funny flipping through the files, all the stuff they put in there. I'm like, wow, this is pretty impressive.
Wow.
And it's pretty badass, dude. I gotta say, I highly recommend it.
Man, that's so awesome.
It's pretty cool. Anyway, sorry to sidetrack.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so jumping back onto the TV side of things, there's a series that's on Netflix right now, and I think it was originally a British series, and it's called Black Mirror.
Is this a remake or?
No, this is the actual series.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just on Netflix now. It's available.
Right.
So have you heard of this series?
I've heard of it. I've heard really, really good things about it.
Yeah.
And that it's been in the UK for a little while now, and we haven't been able to watch it over here.
Yeah. And the idea behind it is that it's kind of like the Twilight Zone, except for in this way that it sort of deals mainly around social media and technology, and it still has those ways that it plays into societal roles and the way it can hurt us, and it has that sort of just technological bent to it. And oh my God, that series is so freaking good. I mean, anyone that knows me and knows how much I love television knows that for me, my all-time favorite TV show, and always has been, always will be, is Twilight Zone. And this is like as if it's the updated twin of the Twilight Zone as a series. It has that same sort of feel, that same sort of parable that you get when you watch a Twilight Zone episode. And man, it just felt, it sort of really filled that Jones I've had for a series that's like that. So it was like, man, it's such an easy commitment for anyone that would want to watch this series, because it's 2 seasons and each season has 3 episodes in the season.
As
so
is
it's
common with a British show, I guess.
Yeah, so it's like 6 episodes total, and they just had released a Christmas special that had what's his name, John Hamm in it.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, and that one just came out, but it's not available here in the States. So I guess you have to kind of like search around and try and find it. But aside from that, it is, oh man, I cannot recommend it enough. Definitely put it at the top of your list. It's so good. I loved it, loved it, loved it. So yeah,
Cool.
That's Black Mirror. And after that, I started watching a lot of films that were still available, I guess, at home to watch before I went to the theater to see some of the other things. And some of those were based off the stuff that we talked about before. One of them was the one I love that Michelle saw.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one was wow. Like,
Yeah, that's kind of there's
yeah, it's this quirky sort of movie that deals with relationships and this marriage, this couple who's been married and they're just sort of stuck and it doesn't seem to be going well. So they go to this retreat kind of thing, but it's just them and they're trying to work on their marriage and weird things happen. And that's all I'll say. But it was I loved it. I thought it was so good.
Yay!
It was very it was very well written, and Mark Duplass, he was good in it. I liked him a lot in that because of the things he was doing. And that sounds so cryptic, but there's things that he's doing in this film that you just can't help but to like his performance. And so I don't know, it was just so good, and it was so unexpected because when you talked about it, Michelle, you didn't mention too many different things about it. So going into it and seeing how certain things developed, it was just like, man, this is not unexpected, and it's in the best sort of way. So I really enjoyed the one I love.
That makes me feel so good right now. Like I feel like I'm like, yes, I'm so happy you liked it. Yeah, I didn't want to give too much away because you don't. Like, you want people to watch it and just enjoy it, but you can't really talk about it. It's like Fight Club, you know, you can't really talk about Fight Club. Like, you just have to see it. And I'm so glad you liked it.
Yeah, and that one's on Netflix, so anyone wants to see that one, you should watch it, because I really liked it, and Michelle liked it, so that's 2 votes for it, so you should check it out and let us know what you think.
Cool.
And the other one that was mentioned was Bronson, that Yasha had liked, and that stars Tom Hardy. And Tom Hardy plays this guy who's gets sentenced to jail for, like, I think he robs a post office, and he gets sentenced for 7 years, and he ends up spending about 3 decades in prison in like solitary confinement. And the whole thing is that he loves being in prison. He finds it to be like his home. It's like, for him, he sort of he says it's sort of like staying in a hotel for him, and he feels he's in his element. And this guy just loves to fight. I mean, he's just a brawler. And this Tom Hardy, the word I keep using when I think about the film is that it's a transformative experience, because he's so big, like bulky wise, and that it made me think of, like, this must have been like what he was imagining when he was playing Bane, before he played Bane, because he was just this big hulking kind of dude and he's just nuts. He's just insane. And it's so off the wall and crazy that you can't help but to get sucked into it, because this guy is just like unpredictable, and he's the worst kind of guy that you would ever want to be around, because he doesn't mind just making mincemeat out of innocent people that are just bystanders. So it's like, you do not want to be in this guy's radius, because you're going to get used, and it's not going to be to your benefit. So, man, it's just, without saying too much about it, it's just a nutty film. And it's like, it's good to see it, because it really shows Tom Hardy's range as an actor, and he's just insane in this film. So you have to see it if you are a fan of Tom Hardy at all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, everything I've seen him in, he's been amazing.
Yeah.
Including the movie I'm blinking on? Warrior.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of reminds me of that when you talk about this film. But yeah, he's great.
And that, speaking of again, Tom Hardy, there's another movie of his that I watched that was called Locke. And in this one, he plays a construction manager, and he's on this phone call trying to handle this business of getting everything set for the next day. But meanwhile, he's driving on his way to go see this woman in London that I guess he worked with her, and he sort of had a one-night stand with her, and she gets pregnant, but he feels obligated to be there for her because of issues he had with his own dad and not being there for him. So the sort of whole thing behind that, though, is that he's already married, he has kids, and so he feels this overwhelming responsibility that he's willing to put all of what his life is aside just to be by this woman that he doesn't even really love or care for, but it's just because she's pregnant with his child that he feels this responsibility. And the interesting thing about this movie was that this is really all Tom Hardy, because the whole film, and it's about an hour and a half, the whole film takes place inside of this car that he's driving in, and he's just on the freeway driving, and he's taking phone calls throughout the whole film, like on a loudspeaker, and he's just in conversation. And it's just like, it's basically sort of like a slice of life film. You're just seeing a time period within this guy's life, and this over this period of hour and a half. And he's just driving and just having these different conversations between his wife, his kids, this woman that he got pregnant, the job that he's trying to help salvage before everything sort of goes to crap the next day. So it's all told within this frame, and it's just very interesting because it's like one of those things where you're feeling like, how can they pull off a film where basically there's only one actor in the whole film, and you hear voices of other people, and you're just in the car the whole time. So it was a very, very interesting film that, again, if you like Tom Hardy, you should give it a look too and check it out.
Nice.
Okay, so
what else, buddy?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Let me pop through these a little quick.
No, take your time. I'm not rushing you, but
well, you know, I mean,
I'm just giving you shit for watching so much. How dare you watch so much?
Yeah, exactly. There's a decent amount to go through, and let's see what's next.
I'm still waiting to hear about Animal Kingdom. I see Animal Kingdom on your list.
No, I was just about to say yes, Animal Kingdom. Okay, so that one had from who I recognized in there was Guy Pearce and Joel Edgerton, and this story. I don't know if you know more about the backstory of it, if this was based on a real life family, but the essential story is this kid who goes to live with his aunt and his uncles, and they end up, or they're like this crime family in a sense, and they end up killing a couple cops, and that sort of brings down all the heat on their family. And they're initially trying to wonder if this kid who's been witness to all these different things is with the family, or is he going to turn against them? And it becomes this whole thing that plays out. And from what I could see from this film, it was weird because I wanted to love it, but I didn't. And I was expecting it to be more, I think from the beginning, I think I was expecting more of almost like a movie like Heat or a heist kind of film. Mm-hmm. And that's not what it was. Yeah, no. It was just more of a sort of a drama, you know, and laced between this family and this kid and everything of what they were going through. And the hardest part for me to really get behind with this film was the Australian accents. They were so thick that a lot of times I couldn't understand what they were saying, and so it was really hard to watch it from that perspective, right, of trying to see what the situation was. But I will say it sort of felt like a little bit like if you were to encapsulate it, it's kind of a little bit like Breaking Bad in some ways, and that there's like a guy who's kind of almost like, how Walter White is, and the kid is almost like whatchamacall, what's his name on the show? Jesse. He's almost kind of like Jesse in a way, and he's sort of pulled into certain situations that he doesn't necessarily want to be a part of. And so from a certain standpoint, it's not like I didn't like it. I just was expecting to love it more, because to hear you talk about it more highly, I think I was expecting a different type of film than what I was getting.
And I went into it, even though I had heard good things about it, like, just critically before I watched it. I don't know. I went into it not having any idea what I was about to see, and then so when I watched it, I was like, wow, that kind of came out of nowhere. Even though I'd heard good things, I didn't know it was going to be that good. That was my reaction. I really liked it.
Okay. But after that, let's see, what else did I watch? The Babadook. Okay.
The Babadook.
The Babadook. Yeah. That one was interesting in that like it's really pretty much what you said. It was, I agree 100% with what you were saying about it. It's not necessarily a super scary movie, or although maybe to some people it might be, but it was more about setting a tone and a mood. And you have this story where this woman who's had a loss of her husband, and she's just raising this kid, and she's reading him these bedtime stories, and all of a sudden there's this Babadook story that once you start to read it, it starts to sort of seep in, and then this entity, this monster, becomes into your home, and so it starts to almost become a movie that's like an Exorcist type film, where you're possessed and different things start to happen. And so for me, it was like it was okay. It was decent. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of the praise I'm seeing for it, I don't feel the same way as they seem to be enjoying it, in that sort of level of, I don't know if it's really super horrified to them, where they're just really jumping out of their seat or what. But I didn't get that from this. It was just more of a story, and there were some of those elements to it, but it didn't really feel like that type of a film to me. And I don't know. What did you really think in terms of like the scare factor? Was it there for you?
No. And I mean,
Okay.
that was, what I said when, at least I hope that's what I said when I talked about it, was I don't think it was a scary film like that. And that's what bothered me about some of the reaction, like, what's his name, who directed The Exorcist, who called it like the scariest movie he's ever seen. In a way, I understand what he's saying, because I think it is scary in a certain sense, but not, I think, in the sense that most people would take that as, which is kind of like a scare factor, like a typical horror movie. Oh my God, I almost can't watch the screen. This is freaking me out. It's not like that. Like, it's just scary in its realism, and looking at like human nature and what people could be capable of, and, like even a mother with her kid, and who's going through a horrible time in her life, and things are just really frustrating, and she could get over the top to the point that she would maybe want to kill her own child. It's that kind of scary, but not like, not boogeymen jumping out of dark spaces kind of scary. Not like that.
There was one thing that, and I can't really talk about it without having to spoil it, but there was something towards the end of the film, a story decision that I really didn't understand, and I haven't really seen that at play in any other kind of horror film. And it just sort of confused me as to why that was taking place or why that happened. But it's something I'll have to mention to you off air. But it was just sort of weird. I hadn't seen that in a horror film before. So, but yeah, pretty much like you said, it was decent, but it wasn't like anything that was revolutionary to me anyway. Okay, so another film that I had been hearing about for a while, but not recently, but just for a while, that was good, and I never got a chance to see it, was Stardust. Have you seen that? Either of you guys seen that?
I have never seen it from beginning to end. I have seen most of it, like, on TV, like on HBO or something. Mm-hmm. But in a way, I feel like I can't say I've really seen it.
Okay. I saw it years ago. I saw it on my honeymoon.
Oh, wow.
No, in Europe, and there wasn't a lot on the European channels that were in English, and so it was in English, and it was one of the evenings where we'd spent days running around and we were so tired. We're like, we just need something stupid on television, and we wound up watching it.
Right.
And I vaguely remember it. I don't know. I think I might have fallen asleep halfway through it.
Oh, ouch.
I don't know. I remember it started out well and then kind of started losing steam somewhere in the middle, if I remember.
That was one of those movies I just remember. I think I was actually living in San Diego when that movie came out. And I remember seeing like posters for it around town and seeing trailers for it and going, oh, that looks silly, And then I don't know what drew you to it, Bobby, but I heard lots of good things about it, which always surprised me. I'm like, really? That movie Stardust? Like, that's good? Okay, I guess I'll see it. Even though I really haven't. But
yeah. I couldn't even I can't remember how it ends.
Yeah, see, I don't remember either.
Well, for those who don't know, this movie is directed by Matthew Vaughn, and it stars Charlie Cox, who is soon to be seen as Daredevil in the Netflix series. And Claire Danes is in it. Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert De Niro has a small part in it. Right. And the whole story is that...
Well, real quick, too, to clarify for those who don't know, Matthew Vaughn, he directed Kick-Ass. He directed X-Men First Class. Mm-hmm. And he's upcoming is, Kingsman, the Secret Service. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Sorry.
And so, no, that's perfect because that was one of the reasons what made me want to see this, to go back and see it, because I really had started to realize how much of Matthew Vaughn's work that I really liked. And so I was like, well, let me go back and look at some of his early stuff. And did he also do Layer Cake? I can't remember if he did that one.
I'd have to look. He might have.
But I think that was one with Daniel Craig. And I remember thinking, okay, this is the guy who's going to be Bond. And that's the reason why I ended up watching that. He did?
Yeah, that was his first film.
Okay. Yeah. So, I really enjoy Matthew Vaughn's work. So I was going to go watch this. And the story behind this is that it's about this ordinary guy who is in love with this girl that's sort of the town hot chick, I guess you might want to say. But he has no shot with her. And his town borders this wall that leads to this magical land. And one night he sees a falling star. And so he tells this girl, okay, if I retrieve that falling star, will you marry me? And she's like, sure, why not? And so he travels over into this magic land and has this whole adventure of trying to find the falling star and get it back to this girl. Now, the whole sort of vibe that I got from watching this, the thing that kept jumping out to me was basically like, man, see, it's so weird. It just left my head as I was thinking of it. A Bride's Tale. There we go. That's the film that kept jumping out to me because it has that sort of same level of silliness, but sort of adventure and playfulness to it. And I liked it a lot. I can see why people have said that it's such a really good film. Like for me, it's one that I think if I had been around at the time to have saw it originally, it's one of those ones I probably would have watched more than once, like 2 or 3 times, and got more out of it each time you watch it because it has that whimsical, carefree spirit that A Bride's Tale has.
You mean Princess Bride?
The Princess Bride, okay. Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I've been like sitting here going,
Tale?
I do not.
At first, I was like, Bride's Tale, Bride's Tale.
Yeah, you know what? I don't even know what I'm talking about because I don't know what a Bride's Tale is. But yes, Princess Bride, and cool. So it has that feel to it. So if you like that film, I think you would probably like this one because it really felt like it was a cousin to it or something, but
gotcha.
a spiritual cousin of sorts. So I really liked it. I thought I didn't even realize that it was Charlie Cox at first, and then I was seeing it when I was looking it up on IMDb, and I was like, oh, okay, that's going to be Daredevil, and so I was getting into that aspect as well. But It was fun. It was just a fun movie. So Stardust, even though it's old, it's out there. Check it out. That is, I think. Oh no, one other film that I watched at home was Showrunners, and this was something I had been hearing about on one of the other podcasts I listened to on AMC, Movie Talk, and they were talking about it, and it's about what it sounds like it's about. It's about the people that run the TV shows that you know and love, and what their jobs are, and what it boils down to is a showrunner is someone or a person or people who are in charge of all the aspects of the writing and the producing of an episode of TV, and they have to make sure that it comes in on time and on budget. And their job, man, it really goes in depth and shows you just how difficult it is to run a show. And they have this such a turnaround, especially on broadcast TV, where they have to do 22 episodes. And this showrunner has to be involved in all these areas to make sure that an episode is written within it's like a 10-day turnaround. And so they have to be in there every day, and they're going through these meetings and talking about stuff. And then they get notes from the network or notes from the studio to change this or change that. And they have to know when they have to fight that battle and be like, no, this is my vision and this is how it should be. And when they also have to say, well, look, they're giving us this money to make this show, so essentially it's theirs, and I have to kind of do what they say. And they interview certain people that you know who've been doing it for years, like Joss Whedon, J.J. Abrams, Damon Lindelof, all the big people on a lot of the top shows. And it was really compelling because I enjoy TV, and it was really just that look behind the curtain and seeing how sausage is made sort of thing, where you really get to see what's going on and what it takes to make a show successful, and even shows that aren't successful, just the amount of work that goes into making that come onto the air and try and make it as something that can be viable for the network. So it was really good. I definitely would recommend it. And at this point, it's only available on iTunes, but it's super cheap. It was like 99 cents for a 24-hour rental. So it was worth, obviously, that rental. I mean, it was right. Good for me because I enjoy TV so much, and seeing how that was portrayed, it was pretty cool.
Nice.
And that was it for stuff that I could watch at home. After that,
you had to go outside.
I had to go outside. I had to venture
in that
out.
Big old wide world out there.
I did. So I got plenty of AMC points and got, scored a lot of that as I was going to the theater quite a bit. And I think one of the first ones that I ended up seeing that we haven't talked about was The Gambler. And that was directed by Rupert Wyatt, who just did, what was that, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? And yeah.
Oh, no, he did Rise.
He did Rise, okay.
Yeah, he did the first, Rise.
Okay. And stars Mark Wahlberg, Jessica Lange, John Goodman, Brie Larson, and Michael Kenneth Williams. And Mark Wahlberg, he plays this rich, privileged college professor that's a gambler, and he's addicted. And so he gets in over his head. He owes money to this guy. He owes money to that guy. And it's just one of these things where you want to see how he gets so involved into this disease and basically does things that any normal person, any sane person would walk away from. I mean, he gets up millions of dollars and still loses it and continues to gamble away money that's given to him. So you're like, wow, this guy's got a serious problem. And for me, I thought the film was disappointing because I thought on the premise of it, and to backtrack a little bit, this is actually based off of a film called The Gambler that was, I think, in the 70s that starred James Caan. And I didn't see that film, so I don't have any point of comparison. But just with this film in general, I just thought like it kind of missed the mark on where I thought the film was going or what it could have been able to tell, which was to really get in sort of the mindset of this person that gambles and what that's like and what they're feeling and going through. And you don't really get that. And it was sort of just like this thing where the character that Mark Wahlberg is playing, he just doesn't come across as likable in any sort of way. So there's no real investment in his character. And you're just kind of like, well, if I don't really care about this character, why do I care about what's going to happen with this character and the trouble he gets himself into? And Brie Larson's character, she's sort of the love interest, but then it's sort of this weird thing where he's the professor and she's his student. And so that's already sort of weird. And then even then, it's like you don't buy into the relationship that they have and the things that he does for her in such a short time of him knowing her. Like really in the film, it's only like a 24-hour period of time. And that they maybe have hung out. I mean, the film itself takes place over a little bit longer period of time, but within the time that they really get to actually hang out and be together, it's not much. And so you're asked to believe in this sort of true love aspect that they maybe have going on, and it just doesn't feel real. And I will say that the supporting characters in it were really good. Like Jessica Lange, she was terrific in it. John Goodman was scary in it, and Michael Kenneth Williams, if you've seen him in anything, especially like The Wire and stuff, he's always good. So yeah, there's that aspect as well. But I was disappointed a lot in the direction of the film. Like, you know, Rupert Wyatt, I love what he did with Rise, so I was expecting something sort of good here as well. And he's supposed to be doing something else coming up soon. I forget what he was attached to as well coming up. But
well, there was rumors he might be attached to Star Trek 3, but now we know that's not happening. But,
right, yeah. But it was just sort of this weird thing that would happen with the film where when you cut to a new scene, there'd be a conversation going on as if you would just came in on the middle of the conversation. He'd be at a place where you didn't really see him sort of travel to that place per se. He just is there, and then he's like in mid conversation with someone. And it did that a lot, and it was sort of off-putting and jarring. And so it was just sort of weird. And then even throughout that, there was different weird plot points that just didn't make sense of why the character would do certain things. So just overall, it was just very disappointing film. So I would say stay away from that one. That's just, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Because that was one of the reasons I was kind of interested in it too, is the Rupert Wyatt part of it. You know, I mean, after Rise, like you said, I was curious to see what was up with this. But, you know, based on what you're saying and some of the reviews I've been seeing, it sounds like I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was expecting something different,
right,
and didn't get it, and so it was disappointing. And it's so weird sometimes when you see Mark Wahlberg sort of pontificate and say these different sort of intelligible things, and he deadpans it a lot of times, and it just doesn't sound believable coming from him. So yeah, there was that aspect as well. But one movie that I did enjoy that I'll say was Wild. Have you heard of that movie?
Yeah.
I want to see that one pretty bad, actually.
Okay. So this is with Reese Witherspoon, and Laura Dern's also in it. And it's about this woman who takes this, it's like over 1,000-mile solo trek of like through the desert to just sort of get back to who she was and sort of rediscover herself. And she's on this sort of journey because she's had this loss in her life. And so it was so surreal because a lot of it is just Reese Witherspoon just going through all these harsh, critical emotions, and it ranges, and it does such a good job of telling how she got to the point that she's at and why she's doing what she's doing. Now, when I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about Unbroken and how it had these flashbacks that felt disjointed, in this movie, it makes perfect use of flashbacks. Something's happening to her in the present, and you see something flashback to another point of how she gets to where she's at. And it's so well done. Reese Witherspoon just knocks it out of the park. She's just so good in this film. And I just really came away enjoying it, much in the same way that I don't know if I didn't do enough research on this one to know if it's based on anything that happened in real life or if it's just some story that someone wrote.
Right.
But it still has that sort of inspirational kind of feel that like Unbroken has from what you get from a real person. Whereas with this story, this person going on this trek, this long, like just journey, whether it's physical or metaphysical and metaphorical, it's all within this sort of frame of this person trying to better themselves. And everyone can relate to that. And everyone's been at those points where they're like, I'm at a crossroads and I need to pick which way I'm going to go and which way my life is in direction is going to go. And just seeing that journey and just seeing it on the screen and how real it felt as she was going through all these different things, it was just so good. I just really can't speak highly enough about the film. It was just something that I haven't seen Reese Witherspoon do in a while in terms of bringing that sort of life experience to a film that makes it stand out, and just her acting in it was just so good. So yeah, put it on your card to go see. Michelle, I think you'll really enjoy it, and I think if you get a chance, David, you'll like it too. So Wild is definitely one to see.
All right.
And
last but not least, or least, I don't know.
Well, do I have another one?
I think you do. You saw The Imitation Game, didn't you?
That's right.
See,
I've seen so many.
You can't even remember.
That's the thing. I've seen so many. Okay, so The Imitation Game obviously has Benedict Cumberbatch in it, and he plays Alan Turing, who is this guy who is a professor but gets recruited by the English government or the British government to break this code called Enigma that the Germans have been using to send messages. And so this Alan Turing, he's this very eccentric guy, and he is not the type of person that's a people person. So he's very off-putting, and the people he works with don't like him, but they also recognize his genius and that he's able to offer something. But this guy had such a rough time of it. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm always a sucker for true stories, and whether they're like all completely factual or if some of it's embellished or not, I still just enjoy the aspect of knowing that this happened at some point in time. And it was so good. I really enjoyed it a lot. And what actually stood out for me a lot, not only was Benedict Cumberbatch good in it, but I really like Keira Knightley in this as well. And I hadn't seen her in anything in quite a while. I know she had a film earlier this year with Mark Ruffalo that people were liking a lot, but I didn't see that one. But she was pretty good in this. And so I thought that the story was told well. It really gives you an insight into this guy's life and sort of what he must have been feeling, because he's so isolated and so unaware of even the simplest things, like a joke. He's almost like the equivalent of like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory or Data from Star Trek Next Generation. He's unaware of certain things that most people should be aware of. And so it just lends itself to this nature of the character to where he doesn't get in on the jokes a lot of time, but he's just so above most people's level of intellect that you just sort of sit back in awe of the things that he's doing. And you, as a third party watching it, you're just kind of like, geez, how can you guys not recognize the genius? But yet when you're going through it, what he's thinking of doing and trying to use to sort of break this code is insane. And so you can kind of understand why no one believes him, no one would be with him, and just are completely opposed to the idea. But it just plays out so wonderfully, and it was just so well told, and I enjoyed it highly. So
Nice.
Imitation Game is definitely another one you should go see.
And I guess that wraps up your list of films.
It does, yeah.
does.
I mean, if I would have had the chance to have seen American Sniper and Selma, I would have tried to see those too, but they weren't playing anywhere that I could see them.
Yeah, Selma's one that's frustrating me in that I'd really like to be able to see it before we do top 10 next week.
Yeah.
And I know that's not going to happen for me. So, unfortunately, luckily I was able to fit in American Sniper, even though I can tell you right now it's probably not going to be in my top 10. But, yeah, Selma, I'm like, man, I really wish I could see that. So, oh well. But, yeah, this is going to be one of those weeks coming up where I'm finally going to try to, because, I have, things are busy and it's hard for me to see a lot of films. And then finally it's like 1 or 2 weeks before we do that episode. And I'm like, oh, shit, I got to fit on all these things. I've already got a long list of all this stuff that's, it's either available on Netflix or for rental, which I'm going to try to rent this week and watch like at least one movie a day. So, yeah, I got some stuff to fit in that I'm hoping, I've been hearing a lot of good things about. So I'm like, well, I've got to at least give all these a try. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't think I have much of a list since I just see
everything.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah. But yeah, it's about time for us to go. But before we do, one quick bit of news I wanted to talk about. Star Trek 3 now has a director. We talked about how Roberto Orci was no longer going to direct the film, which, by the way, he's also apparently no longer going to write it either. He's only going to be producing. But our new director is Justin Lin, who's best known for his run on the Fast and the Furious franchise. He did the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th film, I believe. Well, I'm curious to know what you guys think of it. I'll just say up front, I feel like I'm in the minority. I'm actually, I'm happy about the choice. He's a big part of what the Fast and the Furious franchise has become from what it was. And I think that's saying a lot. I know I'm getting the sense from your looks, Michelle, that you're not a big fan, but I know Bobby and I, we've talked about it. We enjoy the films quite a bit. And he's I feel like at least partly responsible for kind of taking a franchise which was one thing and turning it into something very different. And it's actually been pretty impressive. So I think it'll be a good fit for Star Trek 3. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, see, that's the weird thing, because like I can only picture him doing the Fast and the Furious films because he's been doing them for so long and doing them well. And so for me, when him being attached to, or with him being attached to the Star Trek film, I have no idea of what I'm going to see. Obviously, he's so good at action, so there'll definitely be that aspect to it. But I don't know that I necessarily need to see an action-filled Star Trek film.
No.
I like different scenes with that, but that's never what Star Trek has been for me. It's been more of about the characters and about whatever that central story is for that film, and just seeing the evolution of those characters, especially within the time frame of the old movies before this new series, because those actors were getting older and the shows weren't on the air anymore. So you got to see further adventures or more story of those characters in the films. So that was always the important part for me with those. With this, I guess it's more about the story because it's been sort of reset in a certain sort of way to see where they're going to go next with it. I don't feel the same sort of closeness to these characters as I did with the originals. I don't know why that is, but even though they're still portraying the same characters, I don't feel that same sort of kinship with them as I did with the original actors. But
I understand that.
Okay, so with this, it's just like, where's the story going to go, and how does it lend itself to them seeing Justin Lin being the guy that they wanted to go with this, compared to all the names that we heard out there. So I definitely like Justin Lin. I just don't know where they're thinking of going with this film, and that has me super curious, because I think the latest I had read that they were saying that maybe they weren't even going to go with the Orsi script anymore. So
yeah,
to
no,
see
they're
where
not.
that would go.
It sounds
yeah,
and it sounds like he's very bitter about it. I don't know if you've seen some of the quotes. I guess I guess he frequents like a Star Trek forum. I don't know which one it is, and he'll regularly like talk with fans about Star Trek on there. And I mean, he said some stuff on that. I'm like, even as a producer, like, why would you say these things? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I have it right here. I guess one person asked him, since he left, like, is there any hope for the Trek movie to be good or something like that? And he goes, quote, "I won't lie, I don't know yet, but the story we are talking about would be awesome. Hang in there." I'm like, even to say that as a producer of the film, I'm like, you're not sure if it's going to be good.
Yeah, seems so odd.
Not a large vote of confidence there.
And he even went on to like say things which is I don't know, just in bad taste. Like, because I guess you still have a lot of people that are complaining about how they rebooted the franchise, which I'm actually a fan of. Yeah. And he went on to say, quote, "Stop blaming Bad Robot. It was my idea so that you would not know what was going to happen next. Nothing more or less. I stand behind it. And it again is the reason why I make movies and you don't." Like, well then, buddy.
Sassy.
Yeah, he seems like it's time for him to leave Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he gets into it with the fans on the fan board, but I mean, I do definitely, like you said, I agree with the reboot. It was needed and it helps. So, I've been on board with that. But as far as whatever it was that the Paramount must have seen that he had coming for this one, and they were uneasy about, then I just hope that they didn't just snap decision and put Justin Lin in there into an impossible situation. So I'm really hoping that we still get a good Star Trek film out of everything else that's sort of evolved from that whole story.
Right. And by the way, I should mention too, Justin Lin is set to, I think, direct all of the next season of True Detective, if not just some of it. He's at least directing some of the new season.
Oh, wow.
And I think maybe the whole second season from the way it sounded to me. So, but yeah, that's interesting. And that would seemingly be very different from his Fast and the Furious experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a couple episodes, but I could be wrong on that.
And he also directed the pilot for Scorpion. But anyway, any thoughts, Michelle, on Justin Lin directing?
I've only seen the first 3 of Fast and Furious,
yeah.
So I don't know how the franchise has gone or what direction it's in. But I mean, I'm curious to see what he's going to do because, yeah, I mean, even just quickly scrolling through his IMDb, like it's really, there's really not a lot going on there. It's kind of, he did Annapolis and that did not go well. And then what is it? He did 3 episodes of Community, which I used to love Community. It's good. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about this guy. I hope it wasn't just we just need to get a director. Just Justin's free. Yeah. Okay, let's take him because I really love the reboot. I really, really love the reboot of the Star Trek franchise, and I think it's great. And I really want to see the third one succeed and do well and do even better than the first 2. Honestly, I'm looking forward to it immensely, and I really hope this comes out well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm still hoping for is something original.
Yeah.
As much as I think Star Trek Into Darkness was an enjoyable film, it does still frustrate me as I look back at it that the need to rehash the Khan story and do it differently. And it's like, come on, please just do something new. I mean, stop with all the nods to the original stuff. Can we just do something fresh?
Yeah.
I pray that they do that. But
yeah.
But anyway, with that, we need to get out of here. As usual, we'd like to know what you thought of everything we talked about today and the podcast in general. You can let us know by emailing us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, and on YouTube. You can find links to those accounts on our website over on the right-hand side. Also, don't forget, again, next week we'll be recording our top 10 films of 2014. Look for that to be released on Monday, January 5th, so make sure to check that out. And with that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Michelle Curry.
Thanks for listening.